Shalom it's a brand. You just have to say the name, Shalom, and everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. He's responsible for a lot of the success that we're seeing today in the community. He was the visionary that saw it way back. He didn't only see it in Brooklyn, he saw it all over the world.
He was the icon of the community. When he came to the room, there was a presence there.
He was not involved in the business when I was working there. He would come to the office every day, but it was all charity work.
He's not at all tolerant of being lazy. Everything had to be done with a purpose.
I was 14 years old when he passed away. We knew he was a very important man, but we didn't realize the greatness that's been attributed to him since then.
An icon. An icon is a symbol, a person whose presence, work, or spirit becomes larger than themselves. They stand as a reference point for others, embodying values that a community cherishes, its strength, its resilience, its courage. They remind a community of who they are and who they can become. They connect the past to the present and the present to an inspiring future. From an icon, we learn not to imitate, but to elevate ourselves. We learn the importance of purpose, the importance of setting a foundation for future generations. If there ever was an icon in our community, it was Isaac Shalom.
Understood that without education, Judaism is dated. It's perishable. As the generations descend, and would have got more embedded in American society without Torah, we would have drowned. You're not making videos, you're not talking about us. We would have been gone with the wind. We would have melted in the melting pot. His vision to open Magen Yeshiva, which is Isaac Shalom Elementary School, that gave the community endurance. It brought us another 100 years in exile.
When I started driving him, I was 18, 19 years old. A lot of times I would take him to visit hospitals from the community. In the middle of the day, we'd go to Brooklyn, uptown Manhattan, and so on. He was not talkative. He only spoke when it was necessary. He had an idea, and he saw what's needed, and he acted immediately. He didn't stop, and he got other people involved, and he built on that.
He's really like the forefather of the community. I mean, there's one person brought it all together. My father was very close to Shalom. After shul on Shabbat, they would go to Linda Maller's house, where Abraham Assess was also living. He was a widower. And Shalom would be there having breakfast, and all my father-in-law and his siblings were there drinking from Shalom's fountain of knowledge and wisdom. And I think he helped shape their lives and imbued in them what they had in their DNA already, but made them become community leaders, each one in their own right, probably by example.
He was driven like not other people are driven, and that's why 57, 58 years after his passing, he's still revered within our community. They've always given him such gratitude for what is created. I mean, that's a long time in history. 50, 60 years go by, people get forgotten. I think my grandfather's remembered today as much as he was in the 1950s and 60s.
Isaac Shalom came to this country with little more than a dream and the determination to chase it. He worked hard, day after day, when nobody was watching. He worked when it would have been easier to quit, and he built something out of nothing. But the business he created was never meant to serve him alone. It had a purpose, a greater purpose. It was built so others could rise with him, so that people who shared the same hunger, the same hopes, the same dreams could have a place to grow, a place to build something of their own. Through his effort, he opened doors. Through his sacrifice, he offered opportunities. And through his vision, he helped families create futures brighter than the ones they left behind.
You cannot imagine how many handkerchiefs were sold in those days. I worked there, so I knew. And I didn't know what they're doing with it. I said, they're selling more handkerchiefs than bread. He always hired workers from the community, always. Not only young boys, middle age and older men. He always gave them an opportunity to make money. That was his thing.
I had almost no direct contact with him except one time. I don't know how many years I was working. In the summers, they said, Mr. Shalom wants to see you. Mr. Shalom wants to see you. I don't know, I'm wondering, is my job at stake? I have no idea. I'm just a young kid. So I go to his office. It was on 411 Fifth Avenue. And I sit down at the table opposite him, and he gives me a white piece of paper, gives me a pencil and a ruler. He says, I'm told you know how to draw. I said, yes, I'm studying it in high school. He says, okay, I want you to take this paper and pencil, and I want you to make like this. He's describing a rectangle. Draw a line here, draw a line here. I did that, drew the line. Now draw some other lines this way. I did that. He said, okay, now put a door at the end. He said, I'm opening schools in Morocco, and they send me all these fancy building plans. It's a waste of money. I'm going to send them this drawing. That's what I want them to build. So that was my contact with him. I left the room saying I saved my job was not at stake, and I did a drawing for Mr. Shalom. But it was a lesson to me of his dynamic, of his fundraising philanthropy that was not just next door in the neighborhood or in Brooklyn or New York. It was worldwide.
And he always helped his competitors. Men from the community would go to him, he would give them merchandise to sell, and then they decided to open their own business, the same business. He helped them, a lot of times gave them loans. I know one story about the loan he gave Ralph Towel was $10,000 to start his business. He told him, who's your guarantor? You know, who's gonna sign for you? So he says, Mr. Shalom, really, I don't have anybody that's gonna co-sign. So he says, you do. Hashem is your partner. Promise me you give 10% of your profits every year. That's a good cosigner. That's enough for me.
He would put other people in business. He had the merchandise, he had the contacts, and so he would start people off to be his competitor, so to speak. How do you do that? You know, that's who does such a thing?
He'd give them inventory. He'd give them handkerchiefs, and he'd tell them where to go buy, where to go sell, and he would give them on credit. Who does that today? Would you help somebody who's want to become your competitor? That's what he did. That was his nature.
He was happy because he realized, he saw the greater picture. He wasn't interested only in his own success. He was very interested, more than his own success, in community success.
Isaac Shalom was a man who believed that the true measure of a life was not in what one kept, but in what gave away. To him, generosity was not an act, it was a calling. Philanthropy was not just something he practiced, it was something he embodied. He gave not only resources, but time, compassion, and dignity. He understood that the smallest kindness could become the turning point in someone's life, and he lived each day with that truth guiding him. In a world often defined by what people can take, he chose instead to give. And through his giving, he changed lives, quietly, powerfully, and forever.
Most people, and it's only normal, they want their family to do well. He had a wider view. He really looked community-wide. Doing well was important to him.
He would come to the office every day, but it was all charity work. It was all organizations that would come to him, and he was always helping them and soliciting for them with his friends and getting them to know the community. Besides dealing with organizations, he was also problem solvers for the community. Anytime there was a dispute or a problem, he would be the first one to speak to.
I was in Israel about 20 years ago, and a rabbi I was with took me around. He said, I want you to meet this man. And I went to the guy's house, and the man's father was a photographer, and he had a whole wall of photo albums. I gave him my name. I said, my grandfather was Isaac Shalom, and he starts looking through all the photo books, and he came out with maybe 80 photographs of my grandfather during his various trips to Israel. And the thing that I found the most interesting, he was always with religious leaders. He wasn't with the politicians. He wasn't with any entertainers. He was only with the rabbis. And that's where his comfort zone was. He didn't care so much about politics. He didn't care so much about being a VIP. His sweet spot was being with rabbis. That's what he loved more than anything else.
He spent most of his time on philanthropy and not so much on the business. He was involved with the schools in Morocco, building new schools at Magen, always meeting with rabbis of all sorts. And business was more, especially in the later years, more secondary to him.
I remember going to his house on Avenue W. My father would take me there on Sunday mornings. He always had somebody he was waiting for that was arriving at Kennedy at 5 p.m. Sunday night, and he had a meeting with him. It was always meetings with important leaders all the time. That's what his life was filled with.
That was going on 24 hours a day.
My father always liked to say that I had a very rich father, but he never gave us any money. And what he meant by that was he gave away all the money. He gave 80% of his money away to charities. He felt that was, the purpose of earning money was to give it and help others.
He taught the community how to give charity. The philanthropists in the community give credit to my grandfather for teaching them that. You can't go a week or 2 weeks or a month where there's not some new organization popping up to fill some need in the community that didn't exist before.
This community is the icon of any Jewish community around the world. Whether you talk about people in Mexico or Brazil or even in Israel, there's no community like our community. Grandpa Isaac set things into motion, but the community deserves a lot of credit for continuing the impetus that he started with and really building an amazing community today.
He was also very close with the Ashkenazic community, especially Rabbi Kalmanowitz from the Mir Yeshiva. He helped him get off the ground when he first started the yeshiva, which was after World War II, and he helped them get settled, and he did all the red tape, whatever was necessary.
When my father was the president of the Magen David Yeshiva, they had a problem, and they didn't know how to handle it, and they decided to call on Rabbi Moshe Feinstein and try to see what he thought of the situation. And they said, oh, no. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, you can't get him. He's so busy, he's doing so many things, you're never gonna get him. So my father or someone called him up and I said, look, can I speak to Mr. Feinstein? He said, oh no, it's impossible. I'll leave your name. He says, Henry Shalom. 20 minutes later, the phone rings back. How are you related to Isaac Shalom? He says, that's my father. He says, I'm coming to your house tomorrow night. He came to the house, he sat down, he spoke for an hour or two with my father regarding that situation.
Isaac Shalom was a man with a vision that stretched far beyond the familiar streets of home. While many looked inward, he looked outward, across oceans and deserts, to children he had never met but could not forget. He saw a world in need, a world where countless Jewish boys and girls in distant lands had no access to education, no teachers to guide them, no schools to call their own. They were part of a vast and silent population, known as the Forgotten Million. But he refused to let them remain forgotten. He had a vision of classrooms filled with hope and promise. That vision would become Otzar HaTorah, a network of yeshivot that reached deep into the Jewish communities of Middle Eastern lands, bringing children the gift of a Jewish education. His mission was simple and yet immense, to ensure that no Jewish child, no matter how far away, would ever again be forgotten. Through Otzar HaTorah, his vision became a reality. One classroom, one child, one life at a time.
Israel got their independence in 1948. As Israel got their independence, the Arab nations stopped being friendly to them. In Iraq, within 5 or 7 years, they expelled all of them. Syria, they wouldn't let them out.
He sponsored as many as he could to leave Egypt, settle them, and help them find places to live. But he settled them, all of them, in the Mir Yeshiva. Most of them became rabbis. He also partnered with Rabbi Kalmanowitz on setting up yeshivas, especially in Morocco, Iran, and France.
Call them the Forgotten Million because nobody was paying any attention to these people in Algeria, in Morocco.
It was called Otzar HaTorah. And everybody knew that was the organization, that was the umbrella organization for developing these schools in other countries.
And he had an executive director used the Shalom office to work from.
Traveled there many times, traveled there by boat.
He made a few trips overseas to visit the organizations, especially in Morocco, and visit all of them and see that they were being properly run.
And then he set up a network in France. Still today, they're the leading educators of Jewish education in France.
Between all the countries, you're talking about a couple of hundred yeshivas that he was able to establish.
I was once in Montreal, Quebec, to give a derasha, and the rabbi who introduced me says, I want you to know that we're introducing Rabbi Mansour, his great uncle was Isaac Shalom, and he goes on to say that I am a graduate of Mr. Shalom's Otzar HaTorah program that they had in Casablanca, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here, and because I'm here, I have the kollel. So it was a very nice introduction. The next night, I was in Beverly Hills, and I spoke at another event. This was a Persian event, and it's deja vu. The rabbi gets up to introduce me. He says, and the rabbi's great uncle is Isaac Shalom. And if it wasn't for Mr. Shalom opening up Otzara Torah in Tehran, I would not be able to study Torah. So I'm looking at two different places. I was in Montreal and then California, and two different communities. And they're both saying how if it wasn't for this man, their communities would not have Torah today.
There is a saying that charity begins at home. While others focused on building businesses and settling into their new lives, Isaac Shalom looked at the children. He saw bright faces, eager minds, and souls hungry for Torah, tradition, and a sense of who they were. Without a place to learn, without teachers to guide them, without a structure to preserve their identity, he knew the community's future would be at risk. A Jewish community without education is like a flame without oil, destined to fade. Out of that determination, Magen David Yeshiva was born, the first all-day yeshiva in our community's history. It began modestly, but with heart. Although with just a handful of students, the mission was clear: to build a sanctuary of learning where Torah, tradition, and academic excellence would walk hand in hand. And he was right. From those humble beginnings grew a thriving institution and community that shaped generations. His vision ensured that the Syrian Jewish community not only survived, but flourished, anchored by education, uplifted by unity, and protected by the very values he fought to preserve.
Most of American Jewish society assimilated and went other places because of the lack of Jewish education. This is really key. And it needed to be a yeshiva for our community, our way of reading, our customs, our halachot.
He had an unbelievable foresight, like he just knew what's coming 20 years later, and he prepared for it. And he said, we need that foundation for our youth to learn it properly and to learn all the laws. They can't learn it in an hour Talmud Torah in the afternoon. He said, we have to do it, and he just said, let's get started, and he did it.
And there were people against it and people for it. It went both ways, and ultimately he prevailed.
It started as a bingo hall, I believe, and wasn't getting much use. Room by room by room, he took it over and put a classroom here and a classroom there, and that morphed into Magen David today. You know, there was a lot of steps in between, but yeah, that was the seed.
I know he went and he tested the boys. He went into the class and he asked the boys questions, had conversations with the rabbis about what they're learning and what they're doing and what they're teaching, and he never left it alone.
He had every right to say, listen, I worked hard all my life, it's golden years, it's time to retire, but he didn't.
Go back to history from the 40s till now. Where would we be without the yeshiva?
He gets the credit for saving the community from mass assimilation.
Success breeds other success. How many yeshivot are there now? It's a miracle. How many? And there's never enough.
If you go to the Magen David Elementary School, they have the big portrait. The big portrait of I Shalom when you walk in. That's a legacy picture. You see the founder of the yeshiva, glorious man.
One day I went to visit my grandfather with my dad on a Sunday, and my grandfather opens the prayer book and he says, show me how you pray. I must have been in 5th grade, 6th grade. I went to Yeshiva Flatbush. I did not go to Magen David. In Yeshiva Flatbush in those days, they taught you Chumash and Navi and Dikduk and all those subjects, but they really didn't give you the day-to-day prayers. So I said, well, Grandpa, I don't know. They don't really teach you how to pray, but, you know, I could tell you what the Navi is doing, what's going in Navi. I could tell you in the Chumash what's going on. Okay. All right, we go home, end of the day. I go to school Monday morning, 9 a.m. on the loudspeaker, Mr. Isaac Shalom, come to the principal's office. They look at me, what's the matter? I said, well, what? He goes, why don't you know how to pray? I said, what are you talking about? He goes, your grandfather called up this morning. You didn't know how to pray. You told him we don't teach you how to pray. I didn't know what to tell them. I was getting yelled at. But that was, you know, the influence that he had. That was, you know, one firsthand experience I remember having directly from my grandfather.
Isaac Shalom had an impact. But what is impact? Impact is the force that continues long after a visionary begins their work. It's the echo of actions, decisions, and courage that ripple through years, even generations. Impact is what we still feel today, because what he built, what he believed in, and what he set in motion, however, it doesn't end with him. Just as he had impact, we can have impact too. Every choice, every effort, every moment of courage plants a seed. And the true power of impact is that you rarely see its full reach in your lifetime, but others one day will. All of us have that opportunity to create an impact.
When Hashem created the world, He didn't create 3 million people in one shot. He created one person, Adam. And of course, the Gemara wants to know, why did He create it in such a limited way? And the answer is because it's worthy to create the world for one person, because he could have an impact, as Adam Arishon did. Unfortunately, in a negative way, we're still impacted from some decisions that Adam Arishon made. We're still impacted positively for some decisions that one man called Isaac Shalom made. And the story doesn't end with Adam Arishon and Shalom. It continues with every single Jew, that he is the one man that is able to make a difference. Ripple effect, as long after his passing, we're still talking about it.
He was a doer. He was always active with the community.
He saw a need and he filled it. He saw the Jews in North Africa needed yeshivot. He built yeshivot. He saw the community in Brooklyn going to public school. He looked for the need and he filled it.
Anything to do with religion, with synagogues, schools, he was right behind it.
I was in Israel once about 25 years ago. There was this silver store not far from the King David Hotel. And I went there to buy a couple of items, and I give the guy my credit card. He sees my name. He says, "Oh, how you relate to Isaac Shalom?" I says, "My grandfather." He says, "Hold on 1 minute." He runs in the back. He brings out his father, who was an old man, and he introduces him to me. And the guy starts telling me the story that my grandfather used to buy Judaica from mezuzot, tefillin, sidurim, and other items, and they used to smuggle it into Syria. And they were doing this for a number of years, smuggling. This story I never heard before. It's not, but it's just like, I got to imagine there's got to be more of those stories out there that just don't get the coverage.
At 75 years old, he was still going to Israel and still going to Morocco with my grandmother and still hosting receptions and still going to charity fundraising events. And, that was until his last day. He was doing that.
It's mind-blowing. I mean, to see what's going on in the community today and compare it to 50, 60 years ago, nobody would believe it. If somebody said it's going to be like that, nobody would agree. The education is what turned everything around, little by little. It took time. A lot of families that were not Shomer Shabbat and so on, and now their children are rabbis. They're Shomer Shabbat, and they pray every day, and they go to shul every day.
They had one synagogue on 67th Street, and today, how many synagogues in the community? 45 synagogues. Between New York and New Jersey, there must be 45 synagogues, and there could be another 10, 15 we don't even know about. And you have the same thing with the schools. So you had one Magen David Yeshiva, then you had Hillel Yeshiva, then you had Hayezer Yeshiva, and today there's yeshivas everywhere. It all started from Magen David Yeshiva originally. I think the community has really absorbed that message of giving back. That's why this community is world-famous community. Syrian people turn out for their charities like nobody else. He was lucky enough to be one of the initial leaders, but the community has carried on, and we have great leaders since then, and we have great leaders today. We should all be very proud to be a member of this community, and I'm very proud to have Isaac Shalom as my grandfather.
He was a wise person. A wise person is somebody who could see the future, and Mr. Shalom certainly was that. And I think he led others to have the same type of feeling.
He was legendary. He created a great consequence long after the man is with us.